Welcome to Fox Square here in Midtown Manhattan, home of America's election headquarters, on the eve of the historic midterm elections. We have a jam-packed hour ahead, but first, Fox News alert. In the final hours before voters head to the polls, President Trump's hitting the campaign trail harder than ever as he tries to tip key toss-up races with a flurry of rallies in 3 states. Hours ago in Cleveland, the president fired up the crowd by drilling down on what's at stake for our country.
Everything we have created and achieved is at stake on Election Day. It is. If the radical Democrats take power, they will take a wrecking ball to our economy. A vote for Republicans is a vote to continue our extraordinary prosperity, our extraordinary journey together. A vote for Democrats is a vote to bring this economic boom crashing to a sudden halt. The Democrat agenda is a socialist nightmare for our country.
Meanwhile, Democratic big guns are coming out to try to stop Trump. Barack Obama going after the president and the GOP.
America's at a crossroads. The health care of millions is on the ballot. A fair shake for working families is on the ballot. Perhaps most importantly, the character of our country is on the ballot.
And former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg dishing out millions on a new campaign ad backing Democratic candidates.
We expect to be called to a higher purpose. We expect to work together. I don't hear that call coming from Washington these days. Do you? In fact, I hear the opposite. Shouting and hysterics instead of calm reasoning. Pointed fingers instead of open hands. Division instead of unity. We must send a signal to Republicans in Washington that they have failed to lead, failed to find solutions, and failed to bring us together. That's why I'm voting Democratic.
Okay, Martha, welcome to the 5.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Good to be with
Hello
you.
there.
So glad you're here.
All right,
Hi.
so the closing message for the Democrats seems to be health care and Trump is divisive and racist. And the Republican closing message seems to be immigration, the economy, and the Democrats are unhinged. Are any sides making any traction, you think, on those messages?
Well, I mean, we're seeing the polls narrow, surely. It's now just +3 for the Democrats in the latest read of how this is going to go. And, you know, I think we've learned a lot about polling in recent years, so I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this whole thing shakes out. But in terms of those messages, I can't help but feel that they kind of scrambled to them in the final weeks. You know, I think that the Democrats were lacking a cohesive message other than resistance, which clearly has been their main mojo for the past couple of years. And I think Republicans have been having this, you know, sort of schizophrenic reaction to where they should be. A lot of folks like Paul Ryan feel that they should be very focused on the economy. The economy is doing great. It's a pretty easy argument. The president has gone more for the jugular with immigration and the caravan. He's betting that that's going to help some folks along the way, and probably he's betting that ultimately it's going to help him.
Juan, what do you think about the Democrats bringing out the big guns? Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Mayor Bloomberg dropping millions at the last week. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's good news for the Democrats, especially I think Bloomberg is a former Republican. I think people have a clear sense something's wrong if you get Bloomberg absolutely saying, you know, the message that comes from this White House is one of division, hatefulness, finger pointing, as you saw in the ad, Jesse. So what you see is that this picks up on something that we're seeing right now in the polls, which is a plurality of voters. I think it's 40% say they want to send a message with their vote tomorrow to oppose Donald Trump. 41% saying they want their vote to put more Democrats in position to be a check on President Trump. And I think also a lot of people looking at the kind of advertising that President Trump's campaign has utilized, the one about the caravan in particular, the one that had a man who had been accused of killing people as a centerpiece and somehow representative of everyone in the caravan. You've seen Fox, CNN, and others pull that ad off the air as a racist ad. So I think that this is interesting to me because, for the most part, Democrats have run on the issues, especially health care. But what you're seeing now is that more and more people are saying, you know what, it's about who we are. As you heard President Obama, former President Obama say, it's about who we are as Americans. Who do we want to be? Our character.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely bringing up character in the late hours of the campaign, Dana. And Juan said, you know, you can really get a read on what people are going to think. I'm not so sure. I think we have some sound of Nate Silver, famous political prognosticator, giving a very, very wide stretch of possibility about what could happen Tuesday. Let's listen to him.
Our range, which covers 80% of outcomes, goes from, on the low end, about 15 Democratic pickups all the way up to low to mid 50s, 52 or 53. Most of those are above 23, which is how many seats they would need to take the House. But no one should be surprised if they only win 19 seats, and no one should be surprised if they win 51 seats. Those are both extremely possible based on how accurate polls are in the real world.
It's like the weatherman. He's saying, you know, tomorrow's going to be 80 and sunny, but it's a possibility it could be cold and rainy.
I think it's actually easier to predict the weather than to predict election outcomes. Even if they're the extremes, what he was talking about, like the Republicans hold the House or the Democrats sweep it with like 50 seats, both of those, there's a chance. There's smaller chances. There's probably going to be something in between. I do think also that the gubernatorial races are super important. The Republicans have dominated in the states for so long, like maybe 12 years, and politics cycle, and so it looks like the Republicans are going to lose several of those governorships, and the ones to really watch, I think, for if you're thinking about President Trump's reelection, Florida and Ohio, because 2020 you do the census and you do redistricting, that will have a big impact.
All right, Greg, one day to go. You look very excited.
I am thrilled, and cold. I want to go back to what Martha said. I do feel like the Democrats are cramming for a final. They're all hopped up on Ritalin and coffee because they don't have a message. This is what the Democrats are faced with: an economic boom, GDP, wages, jobs. Foreign policy, almost the destruction of ISIS. It'll take some time. Progress with North Korea. We're seeing progress on trade. We're seeing Supreme Court, 2 justices. We're Keystone. We've forgotten about Keystone. We're rebuilding the military. There's consumer confidence. There's optimism. There's worker productivity. Any one of these singularly as an achievement is something you could run on. The problem with Trump is he's got too many good things. And so all the Dems have is hate. They're the party of hate. And they don't just hate Trump. They hate everybody who supports Trump. And that's what you have to remember when you go to the polls, that they actually despise you. You know, it's kind of sad. And in a weird way, it's a tribute to Trump. He's like a supervillain. And he's bringing out Bloomberg, Obama, Biden, celebrities. They're like the super friends. They have to get together to fight this one guy. He's basically, I don't know, like Lex Luthor, and they're all Robins.
Yeah, what does that say to you about the Democratic Party and the shape it's in right now when they have to bring in so many heavy hitters? A president who just left office just 2 years ago, coming and campaigning this aggressively and this partisanly against his successor. It's not necessarily unseemly, but it's never really happened to this extent before. Does that mean that the Democrats are so threatened that they have to come in with the heavy artillery this late?
Well, he has the bully pulpit. He's the president. So he can do things like send troops to the border for no reason. He's the one who can make an issue out of no issue in terms of the caravans. Oh, it's a threat. It's an invasion. Your children, pull the children in the house. I mean, it's just madness. And so I think what you're seeing is a number of top Democrats willing to step out in an unorthodox fashion because they see this as a critical moment. I noticed in a lot of ads, both on the Republican and Democratic side, people are saying, Jesse, this is the most important election in our lifetime.
Well, you know, they don't have a message other than we hate Trump. And I'll tell you one thing.
That is so ridiculous,
I'll tell you one thing.
Greg. What
if
is
they don't get a
healthcare?
blue wave, if they don't get a blue wave, they're going to blame the White Russian.
Oh, yeah. What is health care? Isn't that an issue?
All right. Oh. Well, listen, Juan, we also have seen Democrats really come to the center on immigration. Claire McCaskill and the Indiana Donnelly guy, too.